5 minutes.
Oh wait. Oh yeah, that's
Or
good.
take it to
No, it's not. Is it? I can't tell because like how it's shaped. Oh, that's good.
You know, on the way out there, there's a section there about 2 meters ice.
It's really, yeah, I came back from Mexico last night, drove on Sony.
There'll be a whole survey coming out soon. And I believe there'll be some like, if you enjoy, there's going to be a bunch of topics you can choose from at times. The survey wasn't ready yet, so I just booked this. And I'm hanging off the Masters Worlds in a week, so I figured get myself in a sailing thinking, start thinking about sailing. So I kind of threw this together. By no ways am I an authority on this. I could be wrong. I could be right on some things. And it's okay to disagree with me because I know I'm not going to be right on everything. And this is kind of my take on it anyways. But I did do some research online on putting this together. So I was talking to Jen, and Jen's like, oh, it'd be nice to know personal stories here. So one thing I'll start off with is a little bit story about myself. So who am I? I'm Isaac. I think everyone here knows me. I guess we're filming to the internet. Hello, internet. So I started off as probably sailing with my dad. He had an albacore. My whole family's been sailing. It's really from my grandfather. He was one of the family club members at Island Yacht Club. So the earliest I remember racing is with my dad and albacore. So we are part of the Outer Harbor of Toronto. I don't know if you ever heard of the Water Rats, but it's kind of, I would say, one of the least fancier clubs in Toronto. And kind of something like a club like this. Maybe this place is even a little bit more fancy. And they get this huge, albacores were really big. We got tons of boats out. Then I started at the junior club at Island Yacht Club, where kind of our family were members, but my direct family wasn't members, but we had relatives that are, my uncle was a member, my grandfather was a founding, and I did opti racing where I started training. I got to racing pretty early. My brothers, who were 2 years older than me, started racing, so my parents started driving in places, so I got carried with them. And after a while, I got my accomplishments. I started sailing very well at opti. I always said I peaked my first year of sailing. I never got better after that. So it was really good, and I started doing, after my second year of sailing, I got the Optimus World Team. I have a little bit of a shirt here. I don't know how well it shows, but it's my Opti Canadian shirt. It still fits me. It shows how well I've grown since then. And we had traveling. We had a lot of families that got together. We did these traveling teams. So I was part of this something called the Lake Ontario Optimus team. It was one of the first times. And as I grow, I eventually went to bite for a year, and then the Laser Rail World Championships was at Buffalo Canoe Club by Niagara. So I jumped really quickly into a laser, and probably started sailing that around 2002. And then we joined another team, and what we did is we rented a house for a month and a half in Houston, and a bunch of us. It was actually all over North America. So you had people from Florida, you had people from Alberta, you had everyone coming to one place. There was like good sailors. We got a really big coach, and we just lived in the house. My parents would just ship me off to Kingston for about a month and a half, and I did that. And I was lucky. My brother was also part of the RCYC High Performance team, and I would always just do training with them. I actually wasn't part of the team. I would just go like pre-season sail with them. They never complained. They were like, yeah, come and sail. So I was always very lucky with that. So I sailed. We'll go over some of the results on the next page. And I would say I'm a pretty good youth sailor in Canada. When I always tried world competitions, I always got back with lead, but I was pretty good when it came to Canada youth. So after youth sailing, I did a lot of 420 FJ sailings at university. So I went to Queen's University. All the sailors in Ontario went to Queen's University and became engineers. I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I'm like, I'm just going to follow what everyone else did. And that's how I became that. And I'm pretty much now sailing here. So here's some of my accomplishments, some of my favorite ones. So as I said, I peaked right early. 1997 Canadians, 4th place. A year later, I qualified for the Worlds team. So I competed in 2 Opti Worlds, 193rd and 188. I did the 2000 one, so it was 188 out of 250. I actually sailed really well to the last leg of every race. I was like mid-fleet, this suddenly ended up in really far behind. At the time I had no idea why. Probably something mental and losing focus at that, but I felt like I sailed there well, even though my results weren't the greatest. I've had to come second and third at the Radio Canadians, now the Ilka 6. Kind of one of my favorite results was a 9th at North Americans. I had one really bad qualifying race. I always do the mental math. Oh, if I didn't have that one bad race during qualification, when the wind was all over the place, they just wanted to get one more race off for qualifying, I would have done better, but I'm sure everyone had that excuse. You always pick out your one results and go, oh, I finished better there. I had the White Worlds there, so I was windy going the last day, and well, I was really happy. It was windy the first couple days, and I had sailed the White in a couple years, and I was flying downwind. Then the second last race, my first 4 races at Regatta, I actually sailed in. This was scheduled for 2 races a day. Like, no, that's just recommended races. So I actually had to launch the boat out, and it's like, oh, I'm going to play it safe. And I got caught on someone on the start line, and it was a really bad race. The next day was light air. But probably the least proudest moment of my sailing career was that regatta, and I actually gave up the last race. So I was really disappointed in myself. It was a really frustrating race. I thought everyone was tacking on me on the last day of the regatta. I had this mental thing, making excuses in my head. And my friend who actually came second rolled me right at the start. I just threw up my hands and went, I'm giving up. And I wish I never did that. I wish I finished that race and did a lot better. So it's one thing, my one regret while sailing is actually giving up that race. I wish I would have sailed, because that actually was pretty poor sportsmanship on me. So something I remember very well. And there's some other things in there. I'm really surprised at the one down YouTube video that has like 49,000 views last time I checked. Actually, I was looking there, it's up to 50 now, so I'm really surprised. I think I might have watched 1,000 of those 50 views, but it's amazing that I put a video on YouTube and so many people have watched it. One actually neat thing about the Bite World, maybe this is fair, I don't know if you recognize, so that was from 2009 Paul Cork. Who's standing beside me there? Do you have any idea who are those two sailors? Actually, there's 3 there. Do any 2 of them stand out to you guys?
That has to be Sarah Douglas in the middle.
Yes, that's Sarah Douglas. And that's Brenda there, too. Brenda Joanna. But Brenda is also there. Brenda went to the Olympics in Brazil for the radios. And it's something, it's funny. I don't know if you guys go to the Cork website at all. I just have lived in the past. They have results since 1997 there. And I was just checking some of these results, and I was looking at the Bite Worlds. And maybe this is a little unfair to Brenda, because she was only 12 at the time. But she was 3rd last place at Bite Worlds. But it just shows you, like, everyone starts from the back. Now, it's a little unfair because she was really young sailing a Bite. But it shows you the dedication there. And while I'm kind of lucky that I've been at the top, a lot of people work their way through the fleet. A lot of sailors I know really started the back of the fleet and really have improved over time. So I have some strengths and weaknesses about me. So some days I think I'm a brilliant tactician and strategist, some days I don't. Some days I think I'm a horrible one. But when I wrote this, I thought I was a brilliant strategic person. I would say 6 to 12 knots is my sweet spot. Below 6 knots, my boat handling's never been that great. The 6 to 12 is now, it seems to be my good. I would say medium downwind I'm also very proud of. You work your boat really hard, I feel like I'm really fast. One of my weaknesses is when I've always sailed against the top people, that heavy air upwind, I feel like I can never keep up with those people. Like, no matter how much I train, they seem really fast. Boat handling. I've had decent boat handling in the past, but it's always something I look at. I've never been at the top. And some people just have such amazing boat handling out there. It's quite amazing. And mental game. I've had people go, Isaac, why'd you give up that race? I'm like, I didn't give up that race. I'm like, yeah, Isaac, when you do bad, you give up. So a lot of people tell me after races that I'm not always focused and stuff. So it's interesting. So I put down mental game there because people have something I haven't noticed, but people always tell me about it. For my sailing career, if I had messages for people, is everyone learns at different speeds. Everyone has a different learning path. You're never behind or ahead. Like, take it at your own pace. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Some of the people I really see who get better really ask a lot of questions. And don't be afraid to go out there. And I think the most important is have fun. I take racing really serious, but sailing can be different for everyone. And it doesn't mean what I feel important. This is I like racing and I get really good at it. It doesn't mean it should be what you have fun too. And we should all make our own fun of sailing. Sail the boat you have the most fun with, or the fleet, or the people you have the most fun with. And those are the people I see. People who have fun I see are people who last the sport the longest. And yeah, sail for yourself, don't sail for other people. And then one thing I'll add is no matter where I travel, where I sail, there's always good sailors everywhere in the world, I find. No matter where you go, there's always one really good person. So always be out there. So I want to go now into more of the strategy talk. If anyone has questions, feel free to raise their hand. I'll probably finish my slide or finish my thought, then we can maybe talk. As I said, I'm not always going to be right here. And I think there's interpretations, and two things can be right sometimes at the same time. If that makes sense or not. So strategy versus tactics. So what's strategy? In a technical sailing sense, it is how do you get around the course the fastest if there is no other boats? From a very technical perspective. So basically, what does that mean? It means you want to get around the course the fastest. So you're thinking about speed and distance. So you want to go as fast as possible on the shortest distance as possible. And that's kind of what your strategy should be. Now on the YouTube, there's actually a mistake in that equation on the next slide. But scientifically proven that time equals distance divided by speed. So remember, scientifically proven distance and speed are the important parts. And I apologize to my YouTube friends or wherever this is going up because I flipped it on the wrong side. And that's not good for an engineer who can't do grade 10 math or science. So what is tactics? Tactics is how do you position your boat versus the other boats in the fleet. This main focus will be strategy here, but I'll throw some tactics. I think when you really get down to a good strategy, I think it involves thinking about a little bit about tactics. But I'm just going to really focus on strategy today. And one thing I would say was good for tactics is that I thought this way when I was putting together. Tactics are a good way to keep you in the race when you have a bad strategy. So when you think about tactics, it's really how do I manage my risk? Your strategy might go, let's go to the left corner, but maybe your tactics say, I want to be the left side of the fleet. Maybe you want to be on the left side of the fleet, not on the left corner. Because obviously, if you got the left corner, you're either going to be first or last. Maybe you're the left of the fleet. If your strategy wrong, maybe then you'll be the back of the fleet. You still catch up. But I won't go too much in tactics. I already started getting off track there. But I always find it a very interesting subject. So where are we at now? So what should my strategy include? So I figured this is a good starting slide. And I'm kind of like over there, I don't have too much going in my head. So in my head, you want to, especially depending on the earlier levels of sailing, we have a lot of people with a lot of different experiences here. Try not to think too much during the race. There is so much happening during the race. There's boat positions, boat speed. So try to leave boat speed and tactics to the race. I mean, once you get really good, speed's kind of automatic for you. We all want to get there, but especially like the first couple sails of the season, like racing, well, half of my mind is just like, am I getting this boat fast? So that's where I went to. So the strategy I'll focus a lot on today will be the first one. Where should I go at the start, downwind, and upwind? And that would be a lot of focus, but I think your strategy has so much more. What's the favorite mark on the downwind or finish? Making sure you know this before the race. How many times have you gone up to like going up the last beat, and this is the first time you're doing like a trapezoid at a big regatta, and you think that side's favored, then you start sailing towards it, and you're like, I'm going to the totally wrong mark. The boat's favored, the pin's favored. So knowing this stuff beforehand so you don't have to think about it. And sometimes it's tricky because the course isn't set up. But usually that finish line is pretty close to that start. You can just sail down, point your boat to the head to the wind, and right, the mark that's closer to the upwind will be favored on the finish line. But knowing that before your race makes your rest during the race less thinking, the less you can worry, more intention you can do on boats. Once again, gates. Gates are super close usually, especially in interloop or like when we're lures. That's super close. You should know what favor the gate is before you start, and knowing this stuff. How to approach ley lines. As we go through this, we'll talk about more of that. We're thinking when there's currents, how do I attack this? Technique. Hey, maybe I was saying this is when I was thinking strategy. What would I put in strategy? Technique's not usually something in there. But if you go up training and go, hey, the waves are like this upwind, maybe you should think beforehand, okay, on starboard, I'm going straight into the waves. Maybe I want to put more. I think that can be part of your strategy pre-race. I say it wouldn't be typical when I was thinking about strategy. I think it's a good thing to think about pre-race. Okay, should I be footing? What are my sails controls? How do I make myself faster? And have an idea. Okay, this is how I want to set it up. So that's a lot of talking, and I have some more talking. So here's kind of the topics I'm going to go through with the strategy. It's current, tides, waves, wind shift, course skew, wind velocity. Then we're going to add some tactics into strategy. So the first thing I'll go current and tide. So Chestermere doesn't really have a current and tide here, but you'll travel somewhere else. And you're actually surprised, even in places you don't think there's current and tide, there's current and tide, especially when there's dams involved, they're raising lower levels, water levels. It could be actually as current where you don't expect it. So, what should we know about currents? Is currents move faster in deeper water? Currents move shallower in shallow water. So if you're going to a place with current, you can go and ask, do you have a map that shows the depth of your water? Where's the course going to be beforehand? So things to think about. Also, you'll see something called a back eddy. Eddies are kind of like a little swirling thing. A back eddy is kind of when the current pushes you the other way. So things to think about is this usually happens in shallower waters or turbulence. So if you go shallower, not only do you get less current, you can get these back currents that could push you maybe the opposite way of where the rest of the current's going. So how do you gather info? So obviously if you go to the ocean and you're racing at Royal Vancouver or out east in Halifax or a place with a lake, just look at a tide chart, right? They'll tell you exactly, you probably Google it, exactly what high tide and low tide is, right? So you know that before you're racing. When's the tide coming in and when's the tide coming out? Obviously when it comes to a lot of this stuff, never bad to ask local knowledge. Local knowledge is really useful. They'll know kind of what to do, when to do. Split tax was again really good. Ripple around the marks. So one thing you can do is you can learn to see how the ripples are around the marks. So if they're not going with the wind, it's probably current. Usually what's more obvious, the committee boat might be pointing a totally different way than the wind. At that point, you should really realize if your race committee boat isn't lined up to wind, there's a current pushing it in a certain direction. So it's very important to look for these things. And you'll see throughout the day, especially if there's tide, you'll see like the committee boat swing different angles throughout the day. And it will tell you where that tide is going. So water bottles. This is a technique I was told. You drink a bottle, and maybe not the safest thing to do. There's a little floating. You throw it in the water, so it's floating a little. You can kind of time how fast that water bottle moves. You can make a judgment call how strong the current is. And really important, practice ley line. Current's going to really get you tricky on the ley lines, right? It's going to push you one direction or the other direction. So, especially, upwalk winds mark is really far away sometimes. But you can still practice on gates, on the start boats and finish boats. Get a good idea of play of how strong the current is and how you approach this stuff. And on that start, the start too. It's probably a good idea, and you start to practice your start a couple of times and how far you have to accelerate from the line. So, my next slide here is I have some questions for everyone. And this is going to maybe some of the more fun part here. It's starting to test you. Start thinking about sailing. So I have a diagram here. And you have the wind coming from upwind, you have a current going across the course. So I figured, let's not make it north or east, too obvious, in different directions of wind. So feel free to go on technical issues. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to move around. What upwind is the fastest here? If you're going, what tack do you think is the fastest? Starboard or port?
I will go right.
Yeah, starboard tack. If you're on a starboard tack, you'll be flying, yes. I think Eugene's getting to the next question already. Oh, it showed up here. Okay, what side of the start is favored you stay here? I would say the boat's favored, right? Because you're getting pushed from right to left a little bit, right? So it's going to be a lot, as Eugene said, you probably want to be on the right side, right? Because you have to sail a little bit against the current to get to the boat. Now, as I said, it's not as obvious if it was coming perpendicular to the wind. Well, that's really obvious, right? So it's going to be harder work for getting to right to left. So I said boat here. Which way should I head downwind when there's a current like this? If you go, now think about it, if you go left, if you go screen to left, what does that mean you're coming back against? Current, right? Now you're probably going the current against everywhere, but you probably want to do a little bit of course right, and it will probably take you to the pin. So does that make sense to everyone, right? You want to avoid going into the last thing you want to do is really go straight into that current right at the end.
That's a tricky one. So you
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
will go, when you're going down, then you will go right?
Course right.
Course right.
Course
So against the current.
against the current.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know it's always course right downwind. Yeah, that's a great question. When we're talking about this today, I've been doing course right. So if you're facing upwind, which way you can go. So that's kind of my general thing here. So yeah, course right. Should I over or understand the starboard lay line? Is it over, under, or neither? I heard it neither, and that's what I was saying. Because you're going the exact same direction as the current. So it'll be interesting coming out on port too. It's good to maybe practice some starboard and port, because you'll be moving, that starboard boat's going to be coming up a lot quicker. I mean, you're going to be getting pushed upwind too. Those starboard boats are going to be like, wow, that starboard boat's moving really quickly when you're racing. So things to think about. How close should it start up to the line if the current's going like this? I hear far. Yeah, I think so too. It's going to push you right over the line, especially starboard, you're going to be flying. Then I have another one for you here. So now this is more of a interesting one. I don't even know what I put as an answer here reading this. I said, what tack is the fastest? Port? Yeah, because you're going the same direction as the current. So it'll be getting a little bit of that left to right motion. Okay, what is the favorite side of the start line? Pin, yeah, right? Because that's a lot of effort getting to the start. You have to go directly to there. So that's a lot of effort to get to the left side in this example. Which way should I head downwind? So the current's going to be pushing you from left to right. Yeah, so you want to hit course left, right? So if you go left, the current will almost push you to the run line. Because it's going to push you from left to right. So you want to go, it will push you there. If you go on the right side, it's going to push you farther and farther and farther over to the right. And you're going to have a really tough sail back in. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Should I over or understand the starboard label? So we're coming up on starboard tack here. And it's going to be pushing you from left to right. So you think you should understand or overstand? Under, yeah. So right, it's going to push you from the left part of the screen to the right part of the screen. So it's thinking things like that, and thinking these things before you race. So you can understand, okay, if the current's coming from left to right, I want to, if the course, I go head to wind, and I go head to wind. Oh, it's pointing perfectly in the middle. That means there's a square course. But there's current. So you actually want to start by the pin. And then that's tricky, right? Because especially here where we never sail with current, you would just go, oh, the middle of the course. But you want to head left, and you want the current to do work for you. You don't want to fight against the current. So let the current do the work for you as much as possible. Does anyone have any questions? Now my mouse is working. Oh, here's one more. This is assuming we're starting on starboard tack. This might be a different answer if you're starting on port. But when do I start accelerating on the start if I'm starting on starboard tack here? Think how you usually start off with a little bit of a reach and head up. So I would personally think about accelerating earlier because you're going right against that current. So it's going to take you a little longer to accelerate. And that's what I said, it's really good. You throw a water ball there, measure, you have all this timing. The best thing to do in these examples is practice beforehand. Get a good feel of this stuff. Before I get to another subject, is everyone good with current? Any questions there?
I only have one question. What are you going to do when you're at a world championship and the race officer has actually taken all those things into consideration and has skewed your course to take in current?
We'll get there later.
Okay.
A little bit.
Because obviously you guys wouldn't have that experience, but we're trained
Yes.
to adjust the course to take the current into account.
We can skip that. We'll talk about a little. You have to weigh everything against each other.
Since
I mean,
you're
if
at World
they're-
Championships, I didn't want you to forget that side of things.
But there's times will be difficult, and sometimes there won't be a favorite side. Like, what you'll have to do is you make your best estimate, and then you review it after your race. I make a strategy and go, okay, I think the pins will be favored based on the curve, but you really don't know until you actually get out there and race sometimes, right? And the important part of making the strategy a bit further is you'll have to review it with your coaches and training partners afterwards. Because as I said, it is sometimes not simple, and it won't be a perfectly set course with one thing that could, we'll get into some examples later, you'll start getting to a lot of things working for and against you. And you do your best to make a strategy, but you then ask your questions, even during the race, is my strategy working for me? So waves, I don't have too much here on waves, but wave size. I think this is a simple one. When we're racing, we don't want to be near waves. Waves slow you down. In some size, we're lake sailors here. There's usually the wind's usually coming off the shore. There's usually one side of the course that the waves have a longer time to build. And it's something to pay attention to. When you do your split tacks or practicing before the race, is there one side of the course with less or more waves? And it's not necessarily a wind thing, but boy, waves can really slow you down. You got big choppy stuff in these. And a misnomer too is downwind. People are like, I love surfing waves. But when you're actually surfing waves, you're kind of going to the low part of the waves. So both upwind and downwind, even though people go, oh, I want to surf waves and I want to go fast, you probably still want to go the side with less waves. Waves are up and down. It's like you sail, we've all done this, right? You're sailing in a wave and you just crash the front of it, right? You're not fast, you're dodging the waves when you're sailing downwind. When you're surfing waves, you're kind of like, I don't want to go up and down. You don't want to go straight crashing. So downwind, you actually want to kind of avoid the waves. You actually still want to be less wave. So things to know, waves are different with physics. Sailing has lots of physics in it. But shallow water usually has steeper waves. Who here sailed the ocean? There's not a lake sailor. I grew up in Toronto, Lake Ontario. You get these choppy things. You go to the ocean, like, oh my God, there's giant swells. It's like, the waves are bigger, but like, the timing's totally different. Like, there are these huge things, right? So you get these deep waterways that are very gradual and big. And here in the lakes where it's shallow water, you get these nice chopped things that's up and down, and it frustrates you and it really slows you down while racing. Obviously, distance. Distance has a huge thing. I think we've all been in light air, and you're like, where do these waves come from? You're sailing, and there's light air, and there's sometimes waves, and it's just from a storm far away that's built over time. So, usually longer wind. Some things to think about. I said, maybe not, sailing strategy. What's my sailing strategy for this race? Wave angles. So, if you're sailing starboard and port, the waves are usually never right perfectly to the wind, especially in lake sailing. There's always one way or the other. So, sail upwind and see, okay, starboard might be very choppy. So maybe I want to let off a little bit when I'm sailing starboard. Maybe on port, if you're going directly in the waves, you can maybe heel your boat a little bit to get through the chop a little easier. And maybe on port, maybe it's a different sailing technique you need. But this is nice things to think about before the race, right? You don't want to be in the middle of the race and go, oh, I should be thinking about waves chops. But how about you have a game plan on how you're going to deal with the waves before the race? And thinking about these things. So thinking about all these factors. Downwind, there's always a question with us laser sailors. The laser sailors here, we love to surf on waves. Sometimes the waves take you far away from that mark when they're offset. So it's a tricky thing. And it's not something you can usually just stare at and go, I'm going to go down the waves. But it's something you have to be aware of before the race. Do some downwind. Try to get between the middle of the up. If you can't get all the way to the upwind mark, you go halfway down. Try to position yourself in the run line. Go, okay, if I surf on the waves, where's this going to head me to? And maybe surfing on the waves isn't the right thing to do. Maybe it's best to do a run line. It will be different for all of us because we all have different surfing speeds and stuff too. So it might be a different, Glenn and I might have a totally different downwind surfing speed. So Glenn might go, I'm going to go directly to the mark. And I go, I think I'm the best surfer in the world. So I'm going to go, I don't care how far those waves are going to take. I'm going to go those waves. Also, downwind too, it's very, I don't know what you guys, I'm a lot more comfortable with starboard tack. But maybe there's a better way. Play around with both waves, especially for laser sailors. There's usually one tack that's a lot easier to surf on waves than the other. But it's probably the same for different boats and the angles and how much you want to favor them. So having this all out before the beginning is a good thing. So those are waves. Everyone's favorites, wind shifts. So very big here in, I say wind shifts and velocities, like chesting. So I have a lot of slides on wind shifts. Wind shifts, you can talk a lot about wind shifts for sure. So let's get some common meaning. And I'll have some pictures on the next slide to better explain a header and lift. So a header is when the wind shifts and your tack is pointing your direction is farther away to the mark than it normally is. So you're going farther away to the mark than normal. Where a lift is you're going closer to the mark than normal compared to the normal wind. So a header is like you're heading far away. A lift, you're heading towards the mark. Is one way of thinking about it. So you want to do the lifts because that will give you the shortest distance. So what do we do with this? There's two types of shifts to usually break down. There's an oscillating shift, which is a wind that shifts back and forth. So in those wind shifts, you typically want to be in the middle of the course, playing the lifts. Then the other type is a persistent shift. And this can happen for many reasons. But for upwind, you want to sail into, and I have some pictures on the next slide. This is very hard to do without. Persistent, you want to sail into the shift. Which way it's going to shift? Upward and away from it downward. So remember, upward and downward is different. And one thing I have always told myself I want to do is get better at telling shifts on the downwards. It's a lot harder I put on the downward than the upward, but we'll talk maybe about how to do that later. So that's where we are now. So let's get some of the pictures. Okay, so the left picture, I think it's the left for everyone. Yeah, left for everyone, right for me. So there's your average wind. You can have our port boats, or your starboard boats on red, and our port boats on port. So in the right shift, based on what my poor probably explanation on the last page, what boat is being lifted here? If it's a right shift. Yes, it's starboard. So you see now, starboard for everyone is not used to this. The starboard is going closer to that top mark. So it shifts right. Now that guy has to sail a lot shorter of a distance. Okay. So persistent shifts. Persistent left shift. So maybe let's start. What's the lifted in a left shift? Where's the, before I get to the second question there, what's the lifted tack here? The port boat. And the starboard would be on a header. So if it's a persistent, so if this left shifts will become more and more left throughout the weather forecast says there's a storm coming out of the left, and it's going to shift the degree, it's going to shift the wind left, your whole race. What direction should you go?
It's a tough question.
Left.
It's a super tough question because it depends on how much it will shift. I've seen ridiculous races where, the general rule is you sail towards the new wind. If you expect wind to shift left, you go left.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about.
It just depends on how far it will shift because I've seen people losing so much on neutral, going like completely the right direction and then going broad reach to towards the first upwind mark because they went way too far, and those who went completely wrong side to the left were lifted so far, so much that they actually just sailed in one nice loop in one tap.
That's
it's super hard question.
And we'll get to that in a couple, let's say 5 slides. We'll talk about that more. But that's actually a great point by Eugene, right? How far is too far left? Because yes, left's favored. It comes a little bit to tactics. What's the rest of the fleet doing? We won't get into tactics. But yes, you do have to be careful. You don't go too far left, right? If it keeps on shifting, soon you've sailed extra distance. So you want to, high and low, you want to go left, but you do have to be positive you don't go too far left. It's a very good point that Eugene makes. But high level, when it goes left, you want to position yourself with the left course. Like in everything, you don't want, there's 2 extremes, and you go 2 extremes to the left. And we're also obviously talking about a vacuum here. As Stacy alluded to, there could be 100 different other things happening on the course. But right now, we're just talking about a left wind shift. Now, downwind. Downwind. So on average wind direction, I think most of us can agree going downwind of most boats isn't the fastest thing. Some boats you want to reach, lasers you want to go by the lead. So every boat's a little different, but usually dead downwind is usually not the fastest point to sit. So usually you want to angle yourself. So let's ignore sailing by the lead for your laser sailors right now. Let's say reach is the fastest. This is the fastest point of sail for your boat. So reaching the faster than downwind. Ignoring by the lead, what's the favorite tack here? It's port, right? If I got that right. Always looking it upside down always messes me up, right? So you have a nice reach angle, right? Who here's, whoa, I'm going. Who here is good at driving on ships downwind? Okay, so we have one person. It's a hard thing to do, but it's something we should think about. If you're really good sailors, especially in the laser I can speak to, it's very different obviously in every boat. Lasers, especially in light air, they can probably jog a little faster than going downwind. I know that's against the rules, but they're probably coming out the jog a little quicker. It's hard to judge, but they don't lose speed. But imagine if you could tell when, there's a reason to jog for wind shifts. So if you're a good jogger, like think of, if you can tell when the wind is like, that's an advantage. You can jog a lot and hit those wind shifts, you can start gaining some,
Because you see, I'm usually in the way, especially in the lake, and I'm usually pretty hard by the lead.
yeah.
So when you're on the edge by the lead, you know the wind direction precisely.
Yes.
You see when it deviates you off away from the course. So
Yes.
it's so obvious. Those who sail just on the road reach, they don't see. So there's no tool for that.
So it's something to think about. And then also, if you're coming up to, another thing to think about too, and easy, we'll talk about that too, and another point too. If you're coming lifted on a starboard tack, up to the, if you're on a lift coming to the starboard tack, that should also tell you which way the wind's coming too. And think about that. If I'm coming up to starboard on a lift, okay, that means reaching on the port, or if you're a laser by the lead on the starboard. So you can think about that too when you're going up the mark. Okay, I'm being lifted, or I'm getting headed coming off the headed, obviously go the other direction. So let's say now there's a persistent left shift. If you're coming into the mark and it reaches faster, which of those two boats do you want to be? Do you want to be that boat that's coming directly downwind, or the one coming in on the reach? You want to be the one on the reach there, right? Like that's a fast thing. So if you know at the bottom of the mark the wind's more to the left, we'll go course right so you can reach in. This is stuff I actually, as you said, actually know it's a lot harder to actually usually tell. But how do we tell if there's a wind shift? Pre-race, you can read a weather report. When all saying, sometimes I find people love weather reports a little too much. And you have to understand we're in a very micro little lake sometimes. And they don't necessarily model for lakes all the time. But if you know, hey, there's a high pressure system, like if there's a reason for a big weather change, if there's a storm coming in, and it's like, okay, I look at the radar, and the weather report says that the storm comes in, all the wind's going to shift to the left. Well, that's a good thing to know during the day. Like, try and understand what's causing that shift, if it's like a pressure system, or if you're good with clouds, which I'm not, there's probably a good way to figure out what's happening in the sky, what's happening with the weather reports. It connects the two. Don't just read the weather report and go, oh, it's going to shift left at 3 o'clock today, because they're doing a weather report for this huge city and not necessarily locals. That being said, some of the forecast systems are really cool nowadays. They have little arrows, and they'll tell you throughout the day where the wind's going and changing. It's actually pretty nice, like Wind Finder has it. So it's actually some pretty accurate saying it, but no, it is a wind report, and don't assume everything for a second. Local weather, there could be things that we'll talk about in 2 shifts. Land actually affects, land does not like land, wind does not like land. Wind does not like friction. Water has less friction than land. So depending on what the land is, and we'll go through some examples in 3 slides here, it can actually change. It could just be something on there. There could be a local weather effect. So I sail in Kingston a lot. A thermal comes in, and what happens is the ground on the land heats up, and the cold water from the lake comes into shore. So you can know every time around 1 o'clock, the wind more or less is going to shift to the southwest, because that's just how the weather works. It's a sea breeze, basically. The land heats up, the hot air moves up, the cold air from the lake comes in. So there's some things like that can be predictable. It was, again, local knowledge will tell you that right away, right? If you go, to a person that sails here, oh yeah, our local breeze comes in at 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock every, Kingston's usually 12 to 1, you'll get this, you get the thermal coming in, what they call it. And it will come in from the direction, so it's from the southwest, so if the wind's from the south in the morning, by 1 or 2, in Kingston you actually see the clouds coming. You know when those clouds start coming, it's going to shift to the left. So be aware of that. So during a race, I have a compass. It tells me where I'm heading in numbers. And it will change directions when I change turns. If your boat allows it, don't be afraid to use a compass. Obviously, you have to learn how to sail the compass. You don't want to be staring at your compass. So there's the whole race because you want to watch and you want to go sail fast. But if your boat allows having a compass, don't be afraid to use a compass. And get used to sail. As I said, there is a technique you get learned. They're actually quite expensive, but if you want to, don't be afraid to take a compass. Boat angles, we'll get to the next slide. You can tell. Sometimes you go, everyone's kind of lined up, and we'll go to the next slide. And the next slide will really show it. You can tell with boat angles. We'll go also an example on the next slide. I'll also have a landmark. You can use a landmark. So you go, I'm heading towards that. I'm heading to build Pedalson's house over there. And as soon as you're not heading to build Pedalson's house, either you got lifted or headed. So you can use landmarks as a guide to where you're headed. Wind indicator. Some people, I actually use a wind indicator downwind. You have to it gets careful. I don't want to get too much this time, so you do have to be careful of the velocity being good and stuff, and sometimes screws your. But people use the wind indicator. It's actually really useful in Chesterfield when the wind dies like 0 knots or 3 knots, and the wind's at a totally different direction. That wind indicator will help you quite a bit. And I missed the most, when I was doing this, I realized I missed the most obvious one during the race. Your sail. Your sails going to your telltale are going to tell you, and I was going over this, I'm like, how can I forget putting your sail down on there, right? If you're going in a direction, obviously your ticklers will start moving, your sail will start ruffing. Either, obviously, there's two things. You're starting to steer differently, which could be a different thing, or there's a wind shift. So here's some examples. So here's my little animation I did. So you're the bottom tree. So you're that bottom tree, boat. You're on a tree. So you can use that landmark. So you're staring at, so see, right now, I'm not going to go into ladders. No one likes ladders, those are boring. But we'll do it simple, right? That boat's looking at a tree, then let's kind of see some magic here. You see the wind is shifting to the right. Is that going to the right looking at a tree anymore? Not at all, right? So if I'm upwind, and if I'm sailing to Bill's Pedalson's house, then all of a sudden I'm upwind on my starboard tack, so I'm heading to Bill's house, and all of a sudden I'm pointing at the Calgary Yacht Club. That probably means I got headed. Now if I pointed above Bill's house, I got lifted. So in this example, the guy, let me go back, is pointing at a tree, and now he's pointing far away from the tree. He just got headed there. And you kind of see the boats too. This is a really exaggerated example here. But look, before here, they're all even, right? It's an even race. Now, this guy got headed. They're all pointing the back of the stern. So you'll be racing, and all of a sudden everyone's pointing towards you. Well, that means you got headed. And usually, if this is a oscillating wind, what do you want to do? You want to go tack. Because now you're ahead. And then it's a persistent way. You have to think like Eugene. It's going to go more, and I'm going to overstand. Do I make a tactical move and maybe cover the middle? But if it's an oscillating shift to go back and forth, you're suddenly ahead. And this is where tactics come in a race. I say, I won't get too much into tactics. You go, I want to take that gain. I have an opportunity to get ahead of everyone. And especially if it goes back left, you'll get that again. Now, if you don't take it, and everyone goes to the left, the opposite happens, then you don't get it. But odds are everyone starts tacking at that point. But they don't, you go, if it's not like sprees, you just take that and go, thank you, I'm ahead. So right now we're all in headers, we want to tack to that lift. Does that make sense to everyone? Oh yeah, remember, you start looking at Bill's house, you go to the Calgary Yacht Club, time to tack on the starboard tack, you start going above Bill's house, you probably want to stay because you're on the lift. So here's some land effects. Here's some of the copyright material I stole. So here's, it's from Salesing, so I did put, I at least did put where I got this from. So here's some examples. So as we discussed, wind does not like friction. It's going to move around land. So you can kind of see here how the wind curves. We actually made a nice, like, here's how you should tack. So you can really see around these points, it's going to avoid land. When it's coming like parallel, it's going to avoid land. So you can kind of see, if you're coming to here on the point, you kind of have to draw. You have to almost do it with your hands and picture, but it kind of shows you, okay, this is how you want to attack things. You can see here, you have a point of land there. You also want to come at it from opposite direction. You can kind of see how the wind is. There's some neat things here to think about. How land goes. I know Phil's trying to do this in. Should we draw some of these out or?
No, I was just trying to figure out. No, it's great.
Yeah, we can draw it
I
out.
really like the second drawing, just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so let's draw it out. We have time here.
Come maybe dive a little bit. So
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Don't worry, that's a scratch.
so that's wind here. And the wind's here, right? So if you're coming up this, if you're coming this way, your boat's probably pointed somewhere like this, right? That's probably not a good way, like, because usually when you come this way, you kind of see this kind of curving around here. You're pointing almost to the right side of the screen, where your normal tack here is pointing a lot higher. You can kind of see the wind's actually a little bit, in their diagram here, the wind's even over here is a little farther that way. So you're coming in here on, sorry, the people in the video probably can't even see. You're kind of coming here on a lift, right? You'll be a little bit headed here. So there's a header this way. And the closer you go to the shore, the bigger the header is for the port tack boat. But there's a little bit of lift on the starboard. And does that make more sense?
Mm.
It's really poor drawing, but yeah. Mysteries of sailing. That's actually very interesting. So here's a couple few ones. And where I'll get to the mysteries of sailing is this middle picture. It's actually a very, I would say it's a 2-minute read. It'll kind of, it is by Sailing World. It's actually a really funny story. So it's about this middle diagram here. According to how the Earth goes in circles, you're kind of on the northern hemisphere, you're always, according to some science, is to the right. When I was always taught sailing, it's perpendicular to the land. And another study says the other way. And the story's really funny because he goes through, well, according to this study, this was the right thing. And according to this study, this one's the right thing. And then someone actually did an experiment and found out it was just random. And in the story, they go, well, how do I know what's going to happen after he said, where he referenced 10 articles on 10 different ways in which you come off land. He's like, well, just go out there and practice, see what it really is. So I just found it really funny. He's like, oh, according to this, they're using all these different math theories on why it should happen. The article says should happen, that middle one, but when the guy did the experiment, it seemed like it was very random. What actually happened. And I'll go to the last picture. That was probably the most important, because that's what happens in Calgary. It's the cat calls, right? They usually have wind coming from above, hitting the water, and it spreads out. I mean, we've all been sailing here, and the guy's 10 foot and you're literally sitting beside each other, like, why is that person pointing in such a different direction than me, right? And you kind of see on there, if you're on the right side there, you want to be on port tack, and on the left side, you want to be on starboard tack. So when you're cowering, you get a lot of these things coming down. So it's very difficult. And you can kind of see more extremes. And you hear people tack at the edge of the gust. And it doesn't always work. But usually why they say tack at the edge is getting the most extreme from this cat paw. It's also tricky too because sometimes you tack yourself right out of it. But it's really, at that point, it's kind of really looking at the wind, at the waves. And I think I forgot, I won't go back, but one thing that I did forget on the page is you can, if you're good, and I would challenge everyone here as Chesapeake sailors, for us to be the best at, is reading wind calls. Look where the ripples are coming from. And I'm really poor at it, it's something I tell myself every year. But I'll sailing at Chesapeake that has so many wind calls where there's such a small lake. I want to get really good at reading wind and gusts. Because you can actually tell, and there's a good video I have a picture of for the wind velocity, actually reading the wind. You can tell by the direction of the ripples if it's going to be a header or a lift. And probably the best, it's really hard. It's easy if you're on a drone. If you've ever seen like over the water view, it's actually really easy to tell. But when you're on the water, it's actually a very hard thing to do. But we have the perfect place to practice it. So if you're ever bored one day, go out and practice it. You go, oh, there's a gust. I think it's going to be a lift or header based on the ripples. You might be totally wrong, but hey, this is a perfect place to practice and kind of see that. So this comes to course view, and I think this is kind of what Eugene was going. When is too far left is left. Very tactical thing to say is take the long tack first. So why do you take the long tack first? So what is a long tack first? That's probably a better question I probably should answer. The long tack is a tacking, and it will change throughout the race actually. Is the upwind tack you have to sail on the most to reach the top mark. So it will change throughout the race, but it's actually a very good tactical move. If you don't know what to do on the course, you're never wrong with taking the long tack. It's just a very generic thing. Taking the long tack is never a bad idea. Now, why do you want to take the long tack? So here's an example. Port tack's the long tack, right? The mark's off to the right. Stacy did not set this course, by the way. We want to make it clear Stacy did not set this course, because the mark's all the way up there.
There's a current, so I did.
Oh, there's a current, okay. So, as you can see here, you're going to spend most of your time on the port to get to the mark. Now, what happens is the wind shifts left. Now you're pointing right at the mark. So when Eugene said, oh, we're persistent left, I get nervous going too far left, because if you go straight to the lay line, in this example, you get pushed over. And that's why you want to give yourself off, is you get lifted. You don't want to get lifted past the mark, so you're sailing extra distance. So you want to angle yourself, and I said it's tricky with persistent left wind to go wind, or right, if you're persistent right wind to actually stop. But you never want to go exact to the quarter, and you want to take it. Now what happens, the opposite happens. It's a header. Well, then it's like that other thing we had. Remember that tree picture? Everyone comes to the stern of you, and you tack over, and you're ahead of people. So you take the long tack, you get lifted, perfect. I'm headed right towards the mark. If I get headed perfect, now I'm ahead of everyone on the left. So that's why people usually, and that's why you don't want to go lay lines too early, right? It gives you flexibility. It doesn't. You want to take, if you get a lift, you want to have advantage of it. If you're on the lay line, you get lifted. If that boat is 20 boat lengths over to the left, he doesn't get that lift advantage anymore. So you want to do the long tack first. Here. And then downwind, we'll do some downwind. I think I have downwind pictures for this. Obviously here, if there's a downwind mark, there's only one downwind where you basically reach to the mark. You're being aware of what that reach mark is. So some questions here. Assuming there's no current, what's the long tack here? I hear some starboards, yeah. Now this isn't, I'm not sure if there, I tried to look this up, I'm not sure if there's any theory on this, but this isn't Isaac's brain what works. What side of the course, which side of the start would you start? Assuming it's a square line, would you start at the start boat or pin? Good, okay, good, we're all thinking the same thing. So it's actually, I thought in my head that was the right thing to do. I was trying to look online to see to double check. But I'm glad we're all in it. It gives you the most options, right? If you get lifted at the boat, once again, you're not taking advantage of that lift. You get head on the left side and you tack over. So that's what there.
It's also closer to the pin.
Yes, it's also close to the pin. Great point, Peter. Peter probably has a lot better strategy than me, so we should just say whatever Peter says. No, he says no. Okay, what tack should I be downward? Should I be starboard or for the lasers by port by the lee? Port / starboard by the lee? Or either? Right, you want to be port. I should have a diagram of it. Maybe I can draw something here, right? If the wind's, I see some questioning things there, right? So the wind's coming in. Let's grab it.
And I'm probably changing my slides.
Oh, no, don't do that. So you have the wind coming from here. And this is your downwind mark. This is a nice, you can reach over. If you're like that, right? So you want to take a nice reach angle there. So if I didn't really draw too well, but it's a better angle than people are. So if your boat was a faster reacher, do you want to have your sail like that? Or if you're going down the wind, if you're going the other way, you would probably be going straight downwind, right? Like this is a better course to sail. Now on a laser, you flip by the lee. Leslie, does that make sense to you, or is it really bad?
I can't really see because the lines are so fine. I can't really see where the sail is on this.
Take the fastest route to it. What I'm trying to get is take the quickest point of sail to the mark. So you want to take the quickest course. If you head straight towards that bottom mark, if you went the wrong way?
It would be a reach. You'd want to
Yes,
reach
you want
it.
to reach.
Absolutely, not going by the lead.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to
Because
get.
reaching is much faster.
Yes. Wind velocity. So another thing to think about, port wind velocity. How to gather info. So you can read the winds. So usually more dense ripples means it's more winds. You can usually see it dark. The water's usually a bit darker with it, but dark ripples usually mean there's more wind or denser ripples.
Or some wind coming.
What?
Or some wind coming.
Or your chestometer, and you can tell because there's no ripple, it's flat over there and that has ripples. But in most places, when there's more than 6, 7 knots, it starts to get a little harder. When it's 0 to 5 knots, yes, it's very obvious when to see it. Local knowledge. There could be a valley for all we know over there, right? So if you go to a new place, for all that you know, there's some mountains and it's going to stream the wind down a certain way. So it could be a pocket of breeze. So it's always good to check local knowledge, once again. Local weather. Once again, we talk about the thermal in Kingston. The land heats up, the wind comes from the ocean, from the lake, into shore, because of the warm air coming up, the cool air coming in. And the wind will actually pick up from the left side to sail in Kingston, just because that's where the lake is and where the thermal starts. So there's just local weather events. Split tacks, never a bad idea to split tacks. Measuring wind speed. Oh, I forgot to go over this in my previous slide on shifts. Get those lazy coaches to do something. They can go to the left side of the course with a wind reader, they can go to the right side with a wind reader, right? They can also do that with the wind. They can measure the wind by your pin, they can measure it by the top mark. They can, right there on motorboat, they can jam up there, sit there for 10 minutes with their wind indicator and go, okay, that's where the wind is at the top mark, and go left side of the course, the right side of the course. So have a coach, make them work. Ask them to gather some information for you. Strategy impact, kind of obvious. You want to sail where there's more wind. So this is a really good video I shared with the laser guys this year. I just didn't want to steal a video and put it up here, but it tells you how to read wind gust and wind directions and gust. It's from the International Sailing Academy. For those who know, I'm a big fan of there. I used to go all the time. They have a whole online course. This one was luckily for free, so take it. It's a whole good video of it going down. It's probably, looking at the screen, you probably can't tell, but basically what you see there, you can't see the details, but there's ripples coming one way. You can see the edge of the darkness and the lightness, and it kind of shows you the direction of where the puff's moving. My advice is, once again, watch the video. The best thing is go out on a Thursday night racing. Go, my job this Thursday night racing is going to try to predict every single gust. I'm going to pay big attention going, I think that wind pockets over there is going to be a left shift, and it's going to be a gust. And see how well you're doing. That's probably the best way of actually doing it, is going on your boat and actually practicing it. But it's very, if you're ever watching sailing, get from up high. It is so much easier looking above and below at this stuff than actually on the boat. It's actually pretty difficult to look at it from the boat. When you watch in collegiate sailing, it was interesting. I would race 2 races, and then another skipper would race 2 races. We would flip back and forth. But you would watch it, and some of these places would have these big fancy clubhouses that were above the water. You could just really see, oh, that person's collegiate racing is like sailing just in Chesterfield places. Your schools are everywhere, so it's whatever the closest body of water is. And so you're sailing with a lot of places with a lot of puffs and gusts. And just watching races from an up view, like a drone view or something you can see at an angle, you can really start seeing this stuff a lot better. So maybe if you're bored one day or sailing on this balcony, you can watch some races, and maybe it'll be a little easier to see from a balcony because it's actually pretty hard to see on the boat. So I'm going to add some tactics to the strategy. I think to make a good game plan for your races, you need to actually think about the fleet a little bit. You can't just take everything in the vacuum. How I always think about clear air. How important is clear air versus a shift versus a gust?
Absolutely the most important thing on this lake. Yes.
Oh, see, this lake you have extreme wind differential. I would say this lake might be a different story than most places. So that's where we might agree differently, Leslie.
But I've just noticed in the last couple of years, we have so many more people on the water, that if you don't get, well, maybe it should be when is it most important to have clear air?
Yes.
Because if you don't have clear air at the beginning, you're hooped.
Clear air, I agree with you, clear air is very important. But if you're racing in Vancouver, you have to ask yourself, what's more important, going left or clear air?
Right.
And that's where the tricky part is. But you need to think about clear air. When you're thinking about strategies, it's great. If I win the start, I can follow my strategy perfect. But also having a backup strategy is important. Believe it or not, I have bad starts sometimes. The bigger the fleet, here I accelerate really good, I'm really aggressive. I get the big fleets, I try to accelerate. It's like the cartoon. Everyone leaves the dust and there would be the dust cloud behind. So do I follow my strategy or clear air? So it's something to think about. When you're making your strategy, is have a backup plan and really think about how important is clear air compared to the wind shifts, the current, and velocity. We'll get more on this in the next slide. I'm going to write fleet tendencies. Where does every coach tell you to start? 2/3 down on either side, right? If everyone followed the coach's advice, which I've never listened to anyone, but if there's a lot of good listeners, everyone's going to start 2/3 down the line. Some fleets, you can really tell tendencies from fleets. I find, like, mature fleets, good fleets, they start more in the middle of the beginning of the regattas, and then they become more aggressive later on. I find youth sailors are super aggressive at first races. They're ready to go. They're going to try to win the start, and they're going for it. What I try to do at the start is kind of look around. I try to stay on my area, and I kind of see where it was setting up and try to manage from that. But you can definitely see strategies, especially a great thing with coaches. Coaches like go, there's a giant line saying in the middle. Every single race for the last 3 races. And that's great information for your strategy, right? If I know there's a line saying every single race, great. If it's 3 boat lengths, I'll start 2 boat lengths above everyone in the middle. And have a great start, and then you don't have to work, if the rest of my strategy works out. But you can use these tendencies in the fleets. If the fleet does the same thing every time, pay attention, talk with people. What's the fleet doing? And another one's ley lines here. Have you ever been in the fleet and everyone's overlaying everything and people are staking in the pin? Or is this a really good fleet and everyone's coming in? Or is it a current fleet and everyone's pulling up by the top mark, right? The current's pushing the people in the mark, you'll get everyone's, if 3 races in a row, there's a big pile up at the top mark because the current's pushing everyone in. Maybe your strategy is thinking, I should be overlaying this ley line, even more than what I would normally do. Even without current, you see enough people crashing the top marks in big fleets. But you can see, if the fleet starts making patterns, you can start changing your game plan or strategy to these patterns. And once again, very useful. So, to me, we have collected a lot of information. So, what you have to do is make a strategy. Competing priorities. Stacy talked about making a perfect race course. I would call it competing priorities. There's going to be times, there's going to be wind difference, shift difference, wave difference. So it's not easy. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's very difficult. What you do, there's no right or wrong way, is do your best. And how I would do is I would rank them in terms of importance. As I said, I put clear air in there because I think that's a really important thing to think about when you make a strategy, is how much do you value clean air versus the rest of your strategy. So, this example, okay, there's more wind on the left, and it's light air. So with light air, usually with velocity stuff matters more. So velocity in light air, if it's 20 knots and the gust over there is 22 knots, you're probably not going that much faster than 22 knots. If it's 5 knots and there's a gust of 7, it probably makes a big more difference because at 2 knots, especially if you start hiking on those 2 knots in a laser, you're really going to get the foil pressure. So usually light air, current, and things that affect your velocity are more important. Now, it's all in degrees, right? A 2-knot gust is going to be more important than a 90-degree shift, or 45. So it's a general rule, but you make a plan with the best knowledge you have. And you're going to be wrong, right? And that's okay. You're going to have good tactics, so your mistakes aren't going to be that bad. But what you'll do is revisit that strategy throughout the race and throughout the day, right? See what's working. But I always encourage people, just try to make strategies. You're not going to be right. I feel like I'm wrong more than I'm right. But at least think why things happen. And talk with, I think I have it all on my last page. Talk with coaches, talk with people you train with, and really learn. But as I said, when you start having competing priorities, it gets difficult. And don't be afraid to be wrong, try it out, and talk afterwards. Go, hey Phil, you just won that race. What did you see on the right side there? And it feels anything like he wants to show how smart he is. He'll say, I saw a nice right shift gust over there, 3 minutes to start here in Chesterfield, so I need to go with that right gust. I'm like, oh, I totally missed that. Or, hey, Phil said, hey, I talked to this guy who's been selling this lake for 30 years last night. And he said there's always going to be a right shift at the top mark. Right? It's pretty, when you get the upper levels, maybe people aren't as chilled. But usually here, I find especially at this level, we're all friends. Unless you're at even the top levels, you'll get people like me who people like to think they're smart, or I do anyways. So you usually ask people why you're so smart, and they'll usually give you an answer. But practice get better. So I have it's 6:30, so it's been an hour. I have I think three examples here where we can talk it out. Then I have a little wrap-up slide. So my S got cut off. I hope I left an S there. Yeah, there's an S on my slide. It's got cut off on the page. So we're at this place. Wind is stronger by the shore. Current is going the same direction as wind. Water is shallower by shore. So, where should I go on wind? If the wind's stronger on the left, and there's shallower water on the left, and the current's coming down the course. Yeah, left. I agree. Course left. Where should I start? Pin. Where should I go downwind?
Opposite.
It's actually tricky because there's more wind by the left.
Yeah, but more current, I guess.
Well, you don't know really. Does anyone know what place I'm referencing right now?
Sorry?
Does anyone know what place I'm talking about right now?
Sorry, what did you say?
It's tricky. You don't. Well, there's 2 competing factors with this little information. It's probably this amount of information you have on the course too. It's hard to tell your first time up, right? So I think you can come to either theory, left or right, and I don't think you're wrong. What place am I referring to here?
Vancouver.
Vancouver, exactly. So last time I sailed Vancouver, I was actually talking to Al Clark about this. It's like, yeah, there's more wind by the left. I was asking him like, oh, should I go by the deep water downwind? He's like, actually, there's more wind by the left. And he's like, actually, usually doesn't matter too much downwind for Al Clark. Al Clark's a smart guy. Someone told me to just call him, whatever. But he's been coaching that Royal Vancouver team for a long time. He's been on the national team. So whatever he says, for a person that stays out long, I'm just going to go, yes, sir, you're right. So here's another place. So wind shifts left by the shore, but will oscillate back right every once in a while. Smaller waves on the left side of the course, both sides favored. So they know the left side's favored, or maybe I'm breaking. Where should I go off wind? There's more wind on the left, and look at where the wind is doing too. If you go left, what do you think will happen? You'll get you get headed, right? So then you attack, that's a persistent left shift, right? So which way do you think you should go? Upwind. Left, right? You have the wind, you'll get headed while going left, so get a nice lift coming up before lay line. Or you don't want to go to the lay line fully. The wind shifts there, you have smaller waves on the left. And then you have someone like, the last race they had a square line, the left was super favored. Now they made both favored. So where should I start, bow or pin? It's actually a tricky question, right? You really don't know until you're actually there. So it's actually a tricky question. And almost maybe you do what the fleet does. Where can I get the best start? But if you start right, you better be able to get to the left. And where should I go downwind? So wind suggests course right, wave says left. So you have the smaller waves on the left, but you'll be coming in on a nice reach if you go to the right side of the course. So you can go either way there. Do you know what place this I try to model here? This is Kingston, Ontario. So that's where you get that nice, there's actually some, if I get this, if I understand how Kingston works properly, well, now this is maybe the boringest question of all. Course is even. There's nothing, you can't find what's different. What would you do if you went to a course and nothing's different? What would your strategy be? Because you go on big lakes and oceans and go, I don't know which side's favorite. What would your strategy be?
Clear air.
Clear air, yeah. Clear air, tactical considerations. So, if I don't know where to go, do I have clear air? The next question, am I on the long time? And does that take me clear air? Because we'll definitely be in places where it's like, I don't know which way to go. I could be missing something, or it is just a pretty boring course. Easiest place to start. If there's a long enough course, maybe people will argue the boat's nice because you have a little bit of a starboard advantage. But it's probably wherever you get a clear start, clear lead. Where should I go? Clear air, tactical, so it's not that, but it's a strategy nonetheless. And having strategies is important. Oh yeah, one more. I couldn't answer this one. 0 to 10 knots in Chestermere. Does anyone want to share their tactical, their strategy when they sail here? Would you? There's like a 0 to 10 knot here. Does anyone want to share their strategy when they sail in Chestermere? Everyone says no. I mean, how many times have you sailed here? I think someone would have a strategy.
Mike would.
Mike would, yeah. Where's Mike? We should knock on his door.
Point side up.
Point, yeah, come on. Not tipping, that's a great strategy. Nothing wrong with that strategy. How I sail is probably the wrong, I love shifts. Probably the best way. It's really hard here because everything's at such a different variation. So it's a very watch and see. I think Chestermere is ahead out of your boat. So you want to be looking and go, okay, there's the wind puffs. So I think wind puffs are very important. I would say I would probably prioritize wind puffs the most, but be aware because there's sometimes some really big shifts you can't miss them. So if I'm on a race, I'm thinking which wind gust, if there's a big gust, I do not want to miss that big gust. Especially if there's some dead places, that's probably my first thing. I might take some bad air to get to some of those gusts. Shifts, probably, if it's a big shift, I'll definitely want to be able to lift. But maybe clean air might be a big, if it's a small shift, I'll probably take clean air over a shift. So that's probably how I would think of Chestermere. A start line, if there's a big gust coming down, I probably want to get to the side that's closest to the gust here. If not, probably middle. Sometimes the best strategy, if there's big shifts too, especially here where it could be a big shift, am I in a position to tack right off the start? Because the worst thing is, you get on a starboard, there's a header, there's a boat beside you, and you miss this big shift. So take into consideration when you start, am I giving myself an opportunity to get that shift? There's always ways of obviously bearing off and dumping the person. Obviously you're missing a big shift. Find a way to get on that tack. And go downwind, probably the same thing. Wind, clear air, and try to, as we're talking before, get those jogs down really good. And use those excuses in here to jog as much as you can on those lifts. So, how to improve? This is a very corporate thing I have on the right. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's what my company feeds me. You learn 70% by doing. You learn 20% by mentoring, coaching, and 10% through classroom courses and reading. So, I think the best thing to do is to go out and practice. And I can't stress that enough. Before the day, gather information. Before the day, talk with people. If you know there's tide charts, get the tide chart. Talk to the local people. Gather information pre-race. Do your split tacks. See what course is favorite. Talk to your course. Have a strategy for each race. Talk to your coach and go, here's my strategy. I would recommend if you have a coach, you come up with your own strategy. You can discuss with your coach and maybe you change later, but bring the strategy to him so you're thinking about it. And have a discussion. Because maybe you don't miss something. And maybe you don't miss something. During the race, don't be stubborn. Learn when to modify and don't get too hard. If one size keep winning, go there. The stubborn part is very difficult. I've been in times where I've been stubborn and it pays off. I've been times where I'm stubborn and a blast course around the course. Probably a lot of that too is learning to be stubborn is experience and where you are with the rest of the fleet. If you're off by yourself, maybe you're going to do bad anyways, maybe that's worth a gamble. If you think you can come back and still gain some votes, maybe that's the time you don't be stubborn. But it's actually a tricky thing to do. Sometimes you think it's a persistent win, sometimes it isn't. And knowing that is sometimes very difficult. And like everything, you're going to be wrong. And don't be afraid to be wrong. Review strategy with self, coaches, and training partners. When I have a coach, I ask the coach, what do the winners do? The people come by talk. Which directions do they go? So I said, don't make it complicated. You might think the right's favored, but if every single race, the person on the left's winning, and the people on the left go there, go left. Don't make it more complicated than that. Someone once came up to me in a race like, you won. And I'm like, yeah, why'd you go left? Everyone who went out left started passing me. The farther people went out left, they got farther ahead. I don't know what it was, but I went left, they got farther ahead than anyone. And it's good to have a reason why going left works, or right, but hey, if it's working, do it. And debrief, people like journals, I should write a journal, but it's not bad things to have notes. I raced this place 10 years ago. Knowing that and keeping it. But as the most important thing, go out there, do it. And one advice, I'll get this off my chest here. If people who like to follow me sometimes, don't tackle me when they follow me. Sometimes people get ahead and I'm like, why do you keep tacking on me? Well, I'm following you. Well, I'm just tacking to get clear air. So be careful. If you follow someone, make sure you aren't giving them bad air. You're like, oh, it's like, why are you going this way? I'm trying to get away from you. Well, I'm following you. So that's my last thing. But I get moody if you say that to me. But I'm a lot happier if someone comes up to me and goes, oh, how did you sail that race? What did you do? Or if you follow me from behind, I don't care. As long as you're not taking my wind downwind. You can follow me from behind, but yeah, just don't tackle me and follow me. Because then you're not getting my strategy. You're getting me trying to get clear air. So that's what I have. I guess any questions?
I just got a comment, and I'll be on my little emailing thing. I'll be sending out something, but there was a note from, I forget who it was now, one of the calls I listened in on the past month or so, talking about practicing what you're not good at, rather than practicing what you're good at.
Yeah.
Because people have a tendency to default to what they know how to do and you feel comfortable doing it. So practice the things that you're not comfortable with. And the other point he made was, this was to do with hiking out and how he got better and better and better at it. When he first got going, he could hike hard and hike really well for maybe 15 seconds. And then as soon as his form started to break, he stopped hiking. And he just puttered for a little while, then he'd hike hard again for 15 seconds, get tired, stop. And then as he got stronger and as his technique developed, eventually he could hike hard for 15 minutes. But I think sometimes we are determined to, like with laser especially, keep it flat. If you know you're getting tired, the boat starts to kind of heel up a bit. You know you're not hiking perfectly, but we kind of hang in there. This is during practice, not during racing. And for whatever reason, we hang in, when really we should be taking a break.
Yeah.
Get your energy back, and then get back at it. And the same thing, the example he gave was, he'd say, okay, I'm going to go and do 10 really good tacks. And if he blew his fourth one, he'd stop, think about it, regroup, set the clock again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do 10 good tacks. And until he could do 10 good tacks, or whatever number he chose, he would just keep at it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, eventually he could do those 10 good ones and everything else.
Yeah.
Practicing the things you're not so good at, but sticking with it, but don't keep doing things when you're doing it badly,
Yes.
I guess was the point.
And that's the review cycle here, right? And that's where we're older, unfortunately, we're not coaches, but we can talk with each other, right? And go, this is what I saw, what did you see? We come to sail with each other after the race. Well, hey Steve, you did great, what did you do, right? And that cycle of debriefing afterwards. And I said a lot here, and this could be a lot for some people. We're all at different levels, so this is probably a lot for a lot of people. And I don't know if some of this made no sense for people, but probably take one or two things. And as I said, it can start getting complicated, but maybe work on one thing. Maybe it's, okay, I'm going to practice using landmarks as shifts out of this talk, right? It just take one thing. I'm going to, Chestermere, there's so many places to take a landmark. I'm going to practice going here, and then all of a sudden I'm pointing lower. Okay, now I know to tap. If you take out one thing out of this, that's great. So I did say a lot, and we're all at different levels. But yeah, that's a great point. A feedback system, and not overloading yourself, is also a good thing too. And knowing when to stop, when you can process the information, and taking it at the right time. Sure. I'll say my last thing here as I sign off. I think a survey's going out. I put like a bunch of topics people want to listen to. I know Eugene's interested, Brianna, both have said they're interested in doing a talk this spring. I need to start organizing the next one. So if anyone's ever willing to give a talk, it doesn't have to be an hour. We get 5 people to give. Here's my sailing experience in 10 minutes. I want to tell you a cool sailing story. But use this as a time to gather, to talk about sailing, and use an excuse to meet up. So if anyone ever wants to do something, feel free to shoot me a message. You don't have to be a great sailor to give a talk. Because going through this stuff just gets you thinking and learning too.